But this time it'll work out. This time it'll work out. I'm sure of it. I'm almost certain of it. Let's get mad with Maly. Everything's bad and that sucks for you. We're all gonna die and somehow that's your problem too. It's the end of the world, so I shouldn't need to edit. There's 89 seconds left till midnight. In the darkness of the night, we're gonna get into a fight. And when we're all dead and the world is free of dread, I'm sure the earth will invent an even more anxious species. Now it's time to start the show. Hold on to your hats because it's time to go. We're all gonna have a great time and we won't need any guests, except for the unquenchable sadness in our chests. Okay. I think we're very quickly going to transition this into a... It doesn't really matter if I screw it up, because the conceit of the show kind of revolves around that. So right away I should probably explain what this is, and probably you don't need the big graphics. That's fine. So let me explain the story behind this show so that you know what you're watching. This is essentially a cheat. I'm trying to cheat. I'm trying to use cheat codes. And so I did a little bit of an outline, but I only did an outline up to a certain point. So after that point, you're probably, I guess I'm going to be on my own. Or I'll pause it, and then I'll pick up from there. So the first thing you got to know is that I haven't really made a YouTube video in a long time, like something that I wrote beforehand and recorded and then did a little bit of editing and like had fun with. And that is because of the energy crisis. So if I'm having an ongoing energy crisis, which is affecting my ability to do anything, and part of the problem of that is the fact that I've transitioned into away from making YouTube videos into, I don't want to say away from, because that makes it sound like I've lost my interest in it altogether, and that's just not true. But ever since doing the horror host thing, which is a stream, and then of course I can't record that. I can't record the VOD because I'm a horror host. I don't play video games, although I am playing video games later today. I'm really not excited about it, and I was thinking of canceling it, but I do kind of want to play, I kind of want to shoot some goblins or whatever as a cowboy. It sounds fun. I'll still do it. But I've got time in between then. But so because of that, that's kind of taking a lot of the energy, and especially recently because I've started doing these freak previews, right? And those are so fun, and those have got me. Those are like little bite size because they're only like a minute or 2 to 2 minutes long or so, and so they're very easy to do very quickly. And so I'm able to do one every week. So that kind of satisfies my my need to like make and edit fun little video things to a certain degree, and that's great. But then that's also leaving me, because because the horror host thing, that's all other people's stuff, right? You come on that show and you tune in and you're not watching. To a degree, the YouTube videos I was making were about other people's stuff in a way, but that was always like a kind of a launching pad for me to like go into whatever. And so the things that I really like doing on the stream when I'm interacting with people, and it's not very many people, but it's people I know, and they show up pretty much every week. So that just gives me a chance to talk to them, and then and do this whole other thing. So that kind of like, that's cool, but it's not really, it's not scratching the same itch. And so I keep wanting to go back in and wanting to, make more video thingies, because that's just like really fun to me. And so, but because I'm putting all my effort and it's this weekly thing and I've never missed a week, that's taken a lot of my ability to do that away, because I have no energy left during the week. And so, what do I do about that? How do I fix that? And that's something I've been kind of trying to figure out for a while now. Pretty much almost this whole past year, really. And so I've had a couple ideas. One of my ideas was to make a PowerPoint thing, because I do PowerPoints for written segments and reels. I put them together. There's one that I put together for a written segment that's not uploaded yet, and it was a previously on thing, and that was very fun. But and it's it's recorded, so I'll upload it one of these days. So that was that whole thing. But that still takes a lot of effort. You have to like get a lot of assets to put into your show and stuff like that, and your slideshow, right? And it's still, it would mean a lack of editing, right? Like I wouldn't really have to edit it, because it would just be there. Like it would be done already. So that would make it easier, but there would still be a lot of setup. And so I was looking at I noticed other people do this stuff where they'll do whole video essays almost, or they'll just like talk to camera for an hour or more. And some really cool examples of this are Angela Collier, I think her last name is, and Jenny Nicholson, who always have something really interesting to say. And they do edit their videos, right? They do cut in like cuts to whatever the thing is they're talking about. Like whenever Jenny does a video about a theme park or something, she'll cut away to like footage of the thing. You know what I mean? So it's not like they're doing nothing, but that level seems very interesting to me. The problem with that is my crushing dysphoria. So that's a difficult thing to deal with. I don't know. I can't just do that for an hour. And it's not meant to be ironic. You're probably already noticing the difference. So there's that. And then, so there's another element to this that comes in from the stream, which is one of our most beloved segments, which is the customary 30 minutes of dicking around. And so you may be thinking that you already understand, if you haven't seen the show, if you haven't seen Maly's Monster Movie Monday, you may be thinking at first, oh, okay, well, I inherently understand what that segment is just based on the title alone. Like, it's about 30 minutes before the stream starts and you're just kind of fucking around, right? No, it used to be 30 minutes. And then it became, then I wanted to shorten it down, so it became like 10 to 20 or 15 to 30 about, roughly. But then recently it has been an hour or more. It's gotten very, very long, and I've spent a lot of time just like kind of talking about stuff, and that's cool. But it's also like, and like I've been thinking, why is that? Like, if I have this much shit to say before I even get to like the introduction to the movie that I'm doing, then why can't I just make that its own thing? And usually that's what's happened, right? Because what's happened is I've essentially had an idea that in a world where I had more energy, that customary 30 minutes of dicking around segment, which has ballooned now to an hour, sometimes even over an hour, right? That segment would have just become a video that I would have written and then edited and then uploaded, right? But I didn't do that. It just became a thing for an extended segment on the stream. So what I figured out, my plan that I put together yesterday, and I was thinking about this because yesterday, it might have been yesterday, it might have been the day before, but I I watched one too many fucking video essays again, and I was like, the world sucks. This sucks. I'm angry. Of course, I'm angry all the time because I'm basically Godzilla in the body of a white girl, and um, I was like, this isn't constructive. Me just like being upset all the time. So, that's kind of what I've been filtering into the customary 30 minutes of digging around segment. So, what if instead I put that into a thing and I put that all together, and the missing piece was I needed I needed something to put on screen. And so what you're looking at right now is the screen. So, basically, if I just pan the camera down, then all of a sudden, the dysphoria aspect doesn't really seem to matter. Because then I can put stuff on screen. Like, see, these are all my friends. All my friends are here. I have all welcome to the temple of the priestess of Godzilla. These are my fucking effigies. These are, this means something. This means something. And I shaved yesterday too because it's hot and I didn't want to wear anything long. So, okay, I can just pan down. And then when I was out, because I went out shopping yesterday, I found this Rodeo Nights. And it is not weather appropriate because it is the dead ass end of the summer. It's way too hot to be wearing this. But I could have sworn I was the only one who celebrated Westween. And yet I found this in a fucking Walmart. This, and it wasn't like hidden in the back or anything. It was like it was up there in the front in the new items buy me please section. That's how it caught my eye. So I don't know. And it's not just this. Granted it's a series of coincidences, but like it's just weird. I guess it's just because it's West Wing for me that I notice it more, and maybe any other month I just wouldn't have noticed it. But I don't care. Shit. You know what I mean? Like, yeehaw, man. All right, sure. So, what do I want to talk about today? So that's the setup for this. So I'm going to say you're probably going to be a little bit lacking in the getting mad part today. And, but essentially the conceit of this show, that I'm finally getting to it 12 minutes in, is that, when I started a social media account, I also changed the name of the Twitch page as well. And so I swapped over from Princess to Priestess, which I haven't done on YouTube, and I may not. I don't know. I was thinking, maybe if I ever do a second channel, then I will do that. But, like, I just don't. I always hear people go like, oh, well, it messes up your algorithm if you post different stuff. And it's like, okay, but, like, nobody fucking watches me regardless. So, like, what, what do I care, right? Like, I'm already YouTube's best kept secret. I don't have a dog in this fight. So, whatever. But it is a purposeful change. And, Princess is more of a, how do I explain this? Princess was the thing I wanted to be when I was a kid. And then, when I realized that as an adult, was when I had a pretty bad time. And so, if I ever do in the future have a good time, a non-exploitative, non-abusive relationship, perhaps, that would be great. And so that would still be there. And I think that's still, like, embedded in me somewhere. But that's not really what I'm doing right now at this part of my life. Like, I figured out that I actually don't like to be treated really terribly. It's actually not very good for me. And so I stopped doing this thing where I would like chase people around all the time, and like now I'm just doing this thing where like, okay, I if you're not just like, if you don't just like want to have a relationship with me, and this is crazy, this might blow your mind. If you don't want to have a relationship with me, then you're probably not a good person to have a relationship with as me, right? And that, that might sound like crazy to you. That might sound ridiculous. Like, how could how would that ever function? How would that work? The answer is surprisingly, it's incredibly lonely. But yeah, I'll tell you this much: not being in a constant state of mortal terror and panic is a hell of a lot preferable. Um, I'll take low energy loneliness over any of that garbage. That was awful. It was ruining my life. Um, so the princess thing is just kind of dormant, and now I'm pretty much full into the true love of my life, which is of course Godzilla, and I am a priestess of Godzilla. If you weren't aware, what does that mean? You're wondering. What do you mean by that? Okay, well, first of all, you're probably thinking, well, that has to be a joke, and you're right, but you may not be right. So when you hear the phrase "priestess of Godzilla," you're probably thinking like priestess, as in like a religious thing, and then so the phrase itself is indicative of a thing, and the phrase itself is the joke, but the thing that it's indicative of kind of isn't. And so what's been happening is that the older I've been getting, the more comfortable I've been with this kind of realization. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about what that means, because it has become kind of a part of the social media presence that I have. And when I say social media presence, please understand that I was never cool at any point. I was on Facebook for a little bit, hated it, did not understand it, saw no point in it. I posted pictures of dead body when they wouldn't delete my account. And dead body, singular. Multiple pictures of dead bodies. Because you couldn't delete your Facebook account, right? You had to get kicked off. So I got myself kicked off because I didn't want to be on Facebook, because there was no purpose to it. There was no point. It's all garbage. And generally, the way that social media works is that you just go and you shout into the void, and nobody can hear you, and nobody listens, and nobody cares. And I do not understand the point of going to a website to make yourself feel alone. It's called social media. Why am I going there? To feel alone and to be ignored. What is the point of that? Why would I ever do that of my own volition, right? So social media has never been cool to me. It's never been interesting. And generally, I've never been cool. I'm for the first time in my life, I'm actually at an age where I feel like I've caught up with it, because now I'm old enough to where it's funny if I say kid slang, but like that was always funny to me. When I was a kid, kid slang was funny to me. You know what I mean? Like back when it was like tight and like what are the other ones? Oh snap and stuff like that. That was funny. That was a joke. That was the punchline. If you said stuff like that, that was funny. I couldn't take it seriously. And then so like the social media thing happened in my 20s, and I was like, I don't get it. And people are like, well, what do you mean you don't get it? You're in the core age demographic. You're in the 18 to 24 demographic. What do you mean you don't get it? I didn't get it. So basically what I'm saying is that the whole social media thing is, for me, unmarked territory, and I don't like it, and I see new things every day that make me uncomfortable with it and hate it. And so but recently I have been using it as a thing where okay, so even if I start from a position of like wanting to enjoy it, I'll go and I'll be like, okay, well, I'm just gonna look at like other people posting cool stuff, and I'm gonna look at their like shit posts and their fan art and stuff like this, and then it inevitably there's somebody going to be posting about the news, and of course the news is always bad. You know, there's fucking fascists, there's war, there's suffering everywhere. It's awful. There's awful things happening, and it's what are you going to do when you hear about that stuff? You know, you can't just you can't like file that away. I mean, maybe if you're like a completely callous, unfeeling monster, you can just go, oh, well, people are dying and starving to death in Gaza. Well, tough for them. You know what I mean? Like, what am I supposed to do in that situation? Like, stop caring? Like, so it gets to the point where, and like, what am I gonna do? I don't have any fucking money. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Do you have any idea how much this single shirt broke the bank for me? Like, I ruined myself. I ruined myself for this fucking thing. And you want me to support a family of 4 who's starving to death. I can't do that. I don't have the resources for that. You know, and it becomes this whole thing, and I just get enraged and sad, and it's awful. It's just awful. And so it time and time again, I go on social media and I just end up posting these huge, because of course you can only post so many characters at a time. Oh, why would you want to say more than one thing? What are you, crazy? No, you can only post like 200 characters at a time. Fuck you if you had something to say. You know what I mean? Like, get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? We don't give a shit about what you think. So, you know, social media, ladies and gentlemen. But so what do I do with all that anger? And so I put into this thing. And so maybe you caught it, maybe you were paying attention, but the thing that I said I was a priestess of is this guy right here, Godzilla. And what's Godzilla's whole deal? Being mad. Being mad at human civilization and all of the horrible things that they do. And so that's kind of my whole bag. And so it's I don't know. I feel like when I post that stuff, I'm just being annoying. I feel like I'm just screaming at a creature that wants to die. I feel like human civilization as a whole doesn't, like, it wants Godzilla to show up and kill it. You know what I mean? Like, it's the most elaborate form of suicide I think anything has ever done, probably since what, like the great oxygenation event, really? Like, the most life on this planet has ever wanted to die. It's incredible. So it's very in there, but like, it's not, when I post stuff like that, it's not very dressed up. It's just kind of like laid bare. And so to me, it's very on brand, because it's still, in my capacity of being the priestess of Godzilla, it's still very much that thing. However, I wonder sometimes that maybe other people like don't get it and they're not perceiving it that way. So, it occurs to me that I've probably never explained this in a way that's actually recorded. And to a degree, I think I have in the -1 video, but there's still some pieces missing. Basically, it's been a while since I wrote that, but I think the main thing that I went to there is that I just don't feel comfortable with the label of G-fan. I don't, being called a fan doesn't really work for me anymore, because more and more what I see as people who self-identify as a G-fan are people who watch MonsterVerse movies, and that's it, and my Monster Fight Bros and that sort of thing, which is like, oh, okay, I just can't talk to you people at all. Like, uh-oh. We have a fundamental misunderstanding of what a Godzilla is or means. Um, you are worshiping the golden calf, my friends. That's not Godzilla. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We have a problem here. So I can't really deal with that shit. So I kind of had to find my own and so that's, I'm kind of excluded now from those circles. I can't really talk to people about Godzilla anymore because one, media literacy is dead. So there's no more of that. So, if you're ever like enthusiastic about movies and you want to talk about movies with people, sorry, nobody knows what art is anymore. You can't talk about art anymore. Nobody knows what it is. Art. Oh, you mean the product that's for sale on www.google.com? No. So that's not a thing you can do anymore. So that's just the major thing. That's the major thing. That's like the bare minimum. Like if you were going to gatekeep art, that's the bare minimum, right? The shit with the canon and the shit with the word of God and the shit with, well, it's not in the official product. Official, saying the word official. I keep forgetting how low the camera is. Saying the word official. You know what I mean? All of that stuff has like built this barrier between being able to talk about art and like being forced into this like thought prison. It's so fucking weird. I hate it. It's so weird. So I can't do that. I can't do that anymore. And there's and when you have that mindset, when you have all of your thoughts beamed into you by the official channels, you can't you can't even talk about anything anymore because all you have is what they've told you. So if you have a canon text, if you have a religious dogma to follow, then what do you even have to say? This is the thing that happened in the movie. Isn't that interesting? No, I know. I've seen it. Do you have anything else to say? No? None of your own ideas? You just want to regurgitate facts that you learned from a wiki page? Okay. Well, this is a fun conversation. I'm glad we are both G fans doing the thing that G fans love to do. And if they don't do that, they're power scalers, which is even more infuriating. But hey, at least I'll say this about power scalers. At least they're trying to think, which is more than you can say for the people who watch Monsterverse movies. So that's this whole thing. So I just can't deal with it. So gradually this this identity, I guess you could call it, as priestess came to me. And the idea is that I am the one in the temple that you come to when you need somebody to sniff some cave fumes and tell you what's going on. And that is part of the joke. Because, and this is very important, so pay attention to this, okay? Everybody get out of here for a minute. I'm gonna go away. Listen. Godzilla is not difficult to understand. It's actually very easy to understand. Godzilla does not often use metaphor. Sometimes a character will just fucking say out loud, man is a worse monster than Godzilla. Sometimes that happens. And if you can't figure out what's going on, what that movie is saying, that's kind of on you. So yeah, I'm comfortable with saying that I understand Godzilla better than most people, but better than everyone, better than, what does most people mean? How big of a demographic is that? And I gotta say, I'm not comfortable saying than everyone. I'm not comfortable saying that I'm the, it's ridiculous to me personally to imagine that I'm up on top of, I am the sole priestess of the Grand High Temple, and if you want if you want anyone to interpret the tea leaves, I am your only source. That sounds fucking ridiculous to me. And yet, and yet, I continue to see people just like fundamentally not getting it, and that's really frustrating. So, but of course, I don't really have an interest in like science communication, I guess you could call it. Um, like I just and this is a personal problem for me. I'm not like this is I'm counting this as a flaw. I consider this to be a flaw. I just don't have it in me to explain things past a certain level. So, and this goes with everything. Like if you don't there's a certain there's like a base level of understanding that if you don't meet, I can't explain it to you because I can't break it down any simpler. So that's a skill that real teachers have that I don't. And I love explaining things that I understand, but like if you don't get it, at a certain point you're just too stupid for me to talk to, and that sucks for me and you. So I don't think that's a good thing. But the way it comes out here is essentially I don't really expect anyone who doesn't already kind of get the joke, as it were. I don't expect anyone to come to my Temple of Godzilla going, not Barry's Temple of Godzilla, my temple, going, oh, well, I really don't get it. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna if you're gonna in my capacity as the priestess of Godzilla, if you're gonna come here and be like, oh, okay, you know, I feel like I need to interpret this through the lens of your fake religion, and it's like if you don't already understand that it's a bit, then I can't really help you. You know, the tea leaves are not there. You have to be literate in tea leaves already to kind of get it. So there's like a kind of a barrier to entry. And so I am going to attempt to explain this. And by the way, if you're worrying about the length, this was always intended to be an hour or more long. I started this, so it says I've been recording 30 minutes. So I started this as boot 1. I was planning on streaming at either 3 or 4. So I started at 1, and I was expecting this to take maybe 1 to 2 hours. You know what I mean? So this so basically the thing is, when I mentioned Jenny Nicholson and Angela earlier, I was doing so in the hopes that you would see the runtime and you would like get it. You would get that this is going to be long form content, because that's what the customary 30 minutes of fucking around was. And I pre-gamed for this. I'm technically pre-gaming for the stream, but I'm pre-gaming for this. So what I want to do in the next however long I'm going to be going is try to explain this, try to explain what it means to be a priestess of Godzilla functionally, and how serious I am about it, because that's a little bit of a question mark, I think. But so this isn't really a conversation I want to get too involved in, because it's a lot and there's a lot of tangents attached to it, and I'm also like, it's just a series of me explaining all the things that I don't know, and I can only go so far with that because I don't know. But when it comes to the idea of religion, I don't understand it at all. I'm at the point now, I've gained enough, you could call it wisdom if you wanted to realize that like you see a lot of like angry atheists and stuff like that, and they'll be like, well, you guys are obviously dumb because I can prove this stuff. And it's like, I've heard enough of that now. I've heard enough of that back and forth stuff since from when I was a teenager up till now, to understand that the religious point of view doesn't accept new evidence. Like, that's kind of not what they're doing. And so when you challenge that kind of belief structure, what you're doing is you're asking someone who's closed for business to open. You're treating a closed store like it's open, and it's not open. And so that there's like a basic miscommunication there. Um, and I don't know how that happens. I don't know how you become a person who says that they have all of the answers already. And sometimes, like apologists and stuff, they'll say like, okay, well, you just don't have the evidence and all this other stuff. The ideas are so strange to me, that I can't wrap my head around it. And at this point, I just have to admit that it's something I don't understand. I don't understand the point of view where you're no longer accepting new information. Why do you? Because to me that's kind of like the equivalent to death. If you're not taking in more, then you're not growing, and you just kind of die. So what? So and I don't want to get into that because I keep hearing people say like, oh well, it's not, religious people aren't like fundamentally like inherently bad or whatever. And like I don't know. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was certainly very, and even into my early 20s, I was like very, well, this is dumb. But like I can't, if I really can't understand that point of view, I don't even know that I feel comfortable making assumptions about it anymore, because I just don't. You're trying to explain the lore of Dark Souls to me. You know what I mean? I don't know. So I just don't want to touch it with a 10 foot full. That's what I meant to say. I don't know. I don't get it. So so that should already tell you that my whole paradigm is that I do take in more information, that I have been learning, that I do like to challenge my own beliefs. For me, a belief is something that changes. It's not set in stone, and as new information comes in, it should change. And so that's kind of my whole deal. And so yeah, that is, for those of you following along at home, that's just kind of like what science is. So I had this whole thing, this thing I was referring to, because I don't know if there's any like name for it, but I called it like a system of meaning. So if you think about meaning, right? Meaning doesn't mean anything. It's fake. Meaning is fake. Meaning is not real. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, okay, let's take it back a step. You don't. There are certain things like love and fear, I guess, to a certain extent. The feeling love for like another person, feeling love for your children, survival instincts, the need to work with a group to make sure that everyone is okay and like working together for the benefit of everyone. They're basic impulses like this, that or motivations, emotions, these kind of things that you experience, right? They're those types of experiences and motivations and feelings you generally do not need an explanation for. You kind of, it's pretty self-evident, right? Like if you fall in love with someone, or you have a child, or you are in a position where you're responsible for taking care of others, you don't really need a very strong explanation of that. It feels like the reason why you would be mentally, biologically, emotionally, spiritually, or whatever motivated to do those things, it's pretty obvious, because the reward is immediate. You help other people and then you feel good, and then that you form these connections and everyone does better for it, and it's obvious. You don't I don't even really think you need to understand like the basic mechanisms of evolution to do it, because this is just, I think everyone understands that, like, if you're nice to people and you work together, you do well. So there's this kind of basic thing that everyone seems to understand, but then there's weird shit, right? Um, these guys, right? Dinosaurs. Why does this exist? Why did we have this book? And okay, well, we're curious. We want to know about the world and everything. But can I show you something about this book? And you probably, I'm going to tell you what, you probably already know what I'm getting at here. But this book here, it says dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals, like in smaller print. And then you look and you open it, you like open it to the middle, pretty much to any chunk. Well, this is a dinosaur, surely. That's a pterosaur. But okay, whatever. All right. Okay. More dinosaurs, more dinosaurs, more dinosaurs. Then you look up in front. Hey, these aren't dinosaurs. This is a fucking fish. And then you go all the way out here in the back, and it's like, hey, wait a minute, these are mammals. Okay. And you get it. You know why a popular science book would be like this. But but that's because, like, people look at dinosaurs and they go, whoa, why do they do that? Why do we do that? We don't have any kind of, like, special relationship with dinosaurs. I mean, raptors used to be predators a long time ago. You know what I mean? They used to prey on hominids and shit. And we farm chickens now, but, like, we don't love chickens. I mean, some people do. I think chickens are really cool. But, like, think about the kinds of, like, really meaningful relationships that humans have with dinosaurs today. And it's like, some people are really into crows. Like me, I'm really into crows. And they'll, like, spend a lot of time making friends with them and stuff like that. Or they'll, like, feed ducks or something like this. And is that really mutually beneficial? Because, like, the birds get food out of it, but what do you get? You get to pet a bird every once in a while? And they come and hang out and squawk at you? Is that really what you want? Why do you need that? Why is that a beneficial relationship? So it's stuff like this. And so it's mostly dinosaurs for me. But, you look around at how many people there are and what the things they're into, and you find it a little bit of everything. Insects, cats, I don't know, what other things do people like? Octopuses, people get really into octopuses sometimes. Really any kind of animal. I mean, and it doesn't just stop at animals too, right? Like, there's people who are really into plants, like gardeners and stuff like that. And we're just like, why? And sometimes you can find, like, a tangible, practical benefit of investing a lot of emotional real estate into having a relationship with these other creatures. And sometimes you just think that they look pretty. And so there's that. And, if you're... This starts to get into a thing where it's a little bit difficult to explain if you haven't really experienced it. But as someone I was never raised around religion, I don't understand it. My parents were boomers, so they were hippies. And if you have a pre-existing system of meaning, then you probably never even noticed that these things happening. But I didn't. I never did. So when I am just out, like, in the forest, and I see something and I feel something, it doesn't always make a lot of sense to me. And something that's been happening more and more, especially now that I live in Cascadia, where I can just go buy weed whatever I want. If I'm outside and I'm really high and I get distracted by something that's just there, just something that happens to exist on Earth, I will just get really fucking into it, and it'll blow me away. And it doesn't even have to be anything that, like, it could just be like a single flower that I think is a cool color, or a shape that I saw in a tree. It doesn't have to be anything at all, but suddenly that thing can have a profound meaning to me. It feels, the way I've described it before is, spirituality is kind of like the opposite of a phobia, right? Where a phobia is where you have this kind of unprovoked, unexplained, irrational fear of something, whereas spirituality is kind of like an unexplained, unprovoked, irrational sense of euphoria for like no reason. And when we feel things like this, we want to attach meaning to them. So the same thing happens with phobias, but like for this kind of thing, we go blah 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 blah. And if you have a frame of reference, if you have a system of meaning that accounts for that, like if you're religious, you have a God already in place to do the work for you. You go, oh, I understand why I felt that way. It's because, you know, Poseidon's magic lance or whatever. I don't know, but you know, for me, I never really had that, so I kind of have to figure that stuff all on my own. And so, of course, I know that it's irrational. I know that there is no meaning to it. So all the meaning that I do place on it is ephemeral. It's open to interpretation. It can change, because ultimately the point is, the meaning that I ascribe to feeling that way, to experiences that mean a lot to me, despite them having no like actual objective meaning, is simply that I get to make up whatever I want. And if that made up meaning makes my life better in any way, then I will hold on to it. And it'll become a tradition. It'll become part of a ween or something like that. I don't know. But if it doesn't, that's discardable. It can move, it can change, it can go away. And I can reinterpret things later and blah, 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 blah. And so what you're hearing, again, is kind of like a version of the scientific process, except for, you know, science is really more of a way to look at reality and the universe, and to try and uncover how things work and what things are and all that kind of stuff, which is great. And it's an extremely successful way of understanding things. And so if it works with things that are objective, if it works for like chemistry and biology and all this other stuff, if it's so successful for all of these things that have definite answers, surely we can apply those same processes to, or that same method, that same kind of scientific method, to things that don't have answers, right? Because if there isn't a truth, if there isn't some undermining actual truth, then the answer shouldn't matter per se. There are things in science that I think would be cooler. Like sometimes if there's no conclusion reached, if we don't really have an answer for something, I will choose to believe the thing that sounds cooler in my head until I'm proven wrong. And then I'm proven wrong and I go, oh, that's not quite as cool as reality, but whatever. I guess we know. It's good to know. But for something like, you know, the tree man, for example, I don't need to have the right answer. I can make up my own. And that's been something I'm very into. So basically what I'm saying is that I kind of treat my spirituality with this version of a scientific method. So if I feel like if my beliefs are challenged and they don't hold up to scrutiny, I will replace them. I will change them. And so back to this guy. When I was a kid, Godzilla was a series of monster movies from the 50s and 60s and 70s, and then there was one in the 80s, and then there was two in the 80s, Um, and then they started making new ones. And so it was very cool. And he's a big monster, and he goes around. Get out of here. Let's get this guy. He's really cool. He's a big monster. He goes and he destroys buildings, and he fights other monsters, and it's cool, and you're a kid, and it's a spectacle, and it's a monster movie, and it's tokusatsu, and they make all these cool monster suits and these sets, and they have all these cool beam effects, and like, rah, rah. It's cool, exciting. You're a kid. You like my monster fights. It's cool. And even today, I still like my monster fights. You know what I mean? I haven't made it the core of my entire personality. But, I like, it's cool. It's cool. I'm a really big fan of Keita Amamiya, and his movies don't mean anything. They're not about anything, really. Maybe there are if you want to dig into it a lot harder than I do, but he's very much a style over substance kind of guy. But he's a very talented artist, which extends to his directing, I believe. Personally, I believe that extends to his directing. I think he's a very good director as well. And so he's really good at making action movies, and they're very cool. But I said this in the -1 video, but like even when I was a kid, I knew there was kind of something a little bit more. And I don't just mean that because it was something that came from my parents, who were like, this is about the bomb, and the bomb is bad. Of course I knew that. Like I knew that like as a fact that I had filed away. But it didn't really mean anything to me for a long time, because the bomb wasn't real in the 90s. It wasn't like a real thing that I was worried about. The Cold War was over. So it wasn't really until after Zilla, and I'll say this. So there were these three points in time, like the step ladder to me losing my innocence. And in 1999, you have, or 1999 would be the middle one. Fuck you, buddy. That was Columbine. And then in 2001, you had 9/11. But then the first step was Zilla from 1998. And so when you have Zilla, it's kind of like arson, murder, and jaywalking, right? But it was the first one, and I can't overstate how much Zilla changed my perspective on the world. And it wasn't a horrible tragedy in the same way the other two were, but basically the experiences was, I was a kid. I was a dumb, stupid, idiot kid. I was naive. I didn't understand how the world worked, and I had seen these Godzilla movies from the 60s that were like these anti-capitalist, advertising is bad kind of, capitalists are like inscrutable monsters kind of things. But it was real. It was like when I went to school and I learned about Nazis and the Civil War and the Berlin Wall, and it wasn't real to me. I never experienced it. I didn't live in a world that had those things. It was like, these things are obviously bad, but they happened like 100 years ago. Who gives a shit? Nobody's doing that now. Nobody's going to do that now. But then I saw it. I saw it happen. And then I saw it happen again. And then I saw it happen again. And each time it was a lot worse. And the thing that happened with 9/11 was that, Columbine happened. And so Zilla was all evil capitalists. Columbine was people just not paying attention. It was a horrible thing that these kids did, but nobody stopped it. Nobody was taking care of these kids, and they could have. It was not a secret. And then 9/11 was that times a billion. It was so much worse. And so I remember Columbine made me really sad. It was, because I was like a nerdy kid in school. I was bullied too. I had, I got it. I got it. I didn't want to shoot anybody, but I got it. And then 9/11 happened, and I was like, you fucking let this happen? You let this happen? And so I was just angry. I just got so angry. And so from there, into being a teenager and all this stuff, it just got to be more and more all the time. And so what ended up happening is every time I would gather new information, as I got older, as I encountered more awful things, Godzilla continued to be tested. These were, this was new evidence in this kind of experimental testing and retesting scientific method kind of a system of personal beliefs. And every single time, it didn't change my belief in Godzilla, it reinforced it every single time. And so now we get to the point where the Nazis are back and they're pissed. And it's like, I just don't, it's become, at this point for me, it's become a theory, like a scientific theory. It's ironclad as evolution or like general relativity. There is no, if we were going to change the model that I have for perceiving the world through Godzilla, everything would have to go out the window. Nazis would have to be good guys. It would be good to kill people. You know what I mean? Every single basic paradigm that I've taken for granted up to this point in my life would have to be thrown out the window. I would have to rethink everything. So, which, you know, I don't normally, when we talk about science, that's normally like an exciting thing, because if everything is, you know, is wrong, then you do get to rediscover everything all over again. So it's really exciting because you get to learn. With Godzilla, I'm really not prepared to say that like killing people is good, actually. So I think this is here to stay. I think this is really, this model is the most effective one. And so when I say that I am a priestess of Godzilla, what I mean is that his whole shtick, the bomb is bad, capitalism is bad, war is bad, pollution is bad, fascism is bad, civilization is bad, all this stuff, I happen to agree. I think all of these things are bad. And I don't know, maybe you think some of those things aren't true, but I do. And so, but of course it's slightly more complicated than that, because you can think all of these things all you like, and they're perfectly reasonable and normal things to think without needing to subscribe those beliefs to Godzilla. And that's, you know, true. I should hope so, right? I should hope that you do not need a monster movie to tell you these things, right? Am I right? I think it's pretty, you know, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm the fucking crazy one, but I would think it's actually pretty reasonable to expect people to be able to reach these conclusions on their own without needing this guy to tell them. That's what I would think. And so you can imagine my disappointment. Now, hold on a second. I need, you know what? I'm not going to pause. I'm just going to get my courage juice. Should I just finish this off? I'm just going to finish it off. It's just a beer. It's not a big deal. Granted, I am a lot more of a lightweight. Do you want to see what I'm drinking, by the way? Is this another episode of my... See, here is how you can tell that I am a very smart person. I'm very erudite, and that I understand art and philosophy and smart people stuff, is because I drink when I talk about it, right? So if you know people who say that they're smart and they don't even tell you what wine they're drinking, they won't even tell you what wine or what year it's from, they're obviously not as smart as I am. Please ignore that this is a fucking beer that you can buy anywhere anywhere on the continent, right? You can buy Dos Equis in Canada, can't you? You can, right? Am I wrong about that? Just because I live in Cascadia, and it's Dos Equis is still every bit as available to me now as it was when I was in Texas. I mean, these people have the export game down. This isn't like a joke. This is actually from Mexico, but you know what I mean. It's a big, it's like to me, Dos Equis kind of feels like the Mexican version of Coke or whatever. I don't know if it's actually that widespread, but like I just don't. If you really think about like Mexican beer and like you know, you want to emphasize the locality of it, and like it's from Mexico. It's got all of the Mexican, sweat and tears and artisan craft Mexico microbrew kind of shit. This is not, this is just the thing that you get and you put lime in that when you go eat fajitas at a Mexican restaurant. Which is why I'm drinking it for Westween. By the way, this is not sponsored. Dos Equis, the official beer of Godzilla. No. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let me finish this off, and then I'll remember what I was talking about. The sheer irony, my black and gold Ghidorah is right up there. My Gigabrain Ghidorah is right there. It's right there, and you can't see it. I'm not moving it. I'm not putting it on camera. Maybe episode 2. Maybe if I do a second one. Don't get it twisted. This is still absolutely being called Get Mad with Maly 1. I will never miss a chance to attach a number to something, especially if it's a promise of a series that I will never deliver on. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh shit, I might have actually forgot what I was talking about. Right. So I was saying, I would hope so when it comes to these beliefs that I have, that like human suffering is a bad thing, and that when human civilization creates systems that enable the suffering of people, when the entire point of civilization was to avoid those things in the first place, that's a bad thing. I would like to think that that's self-evident, and you do not need monster movies to help you arrive at that conclusion. Unfortunately, this is not the case. And so that's very frustrating for me. Now, I could turn this into a rant about the Monsterverse, but I'll tell you what. That was going to be the first episode. Before I landed on just explaining this as thinking this was the most basic thing, I was just going to say, like, hey man, it sure is weird that your version of Godzilla thinks nukes are good, actually. But I feel like if you've listened, if you're here, if you're like an hour into me doing this now at this point, you're probably not going to be someone who thinks that like the Godzilla movie, which is borderline racist and thinks that nukes are good, actually is probably not a very good representation of Godzilla. So I'm just gonna skip that. I don't want to talk about that. But what do I want to talk about? I guess maybe if you're not on board with the fact that I just said that maybe it isn't possible to arrive at those conclusions on your own without Godzilla, that you probably want that explained a little bit. So okay, obviously that's not true, but of course, what I mean by that is there are people who have not figured that out. And Godzilla doesn't seem to be helping them. So I thought about the title of this episode, and originally my idea was simply that, just to give it a very provocative, like the religion of Godzilla or whatever, you know what I mean? Because there is kind of this thing where like, oh, I'm not a Star Trek fan. Star Trek is my religion. Well, I guess Star Trek, it's more like a Star Wars is, I guess Star Wars people do that kind of a thing. Which I've always thought was silly, and I didn't want to compare myself to Star Wars fans because fuck that. Um, but the G fan thing wasn't really working for me. So, but it is kind of everything that makes Godzilla mean something to me. The reason I can't quit this dude is because, let me give you an example. I know. This is the example I always give, and I already did it in the -1 video. But I I think it's just so powerful in what it says. So Godzilla movies, there's been like 33 of them. Like 30. There's been 33 as of this taping. Um and they were made at different times by different people. They all have their own thing going on. And okay, I guess I'm going to get into that in a second. But the thing that I reference from -1 is, no, I should do it the other way around. Okay, so lots of people over lots of different years. So Godzilla is not one entity. He's made up. He's not real. And for a reason, and it's worded in the way that it is for a reason. So I didn't end up going with something kind of provocative, and so the title I picked, in case you can't read, I don't know, is Believe Godzilla, and it's not Believe in Godzilla, because obviously Godzilla isn't real. Like he's not, like there's not a giant mutant dinosaur that comes out of the sea to attack Tokyo every so often. That's not a thing that exists. So so how, you couldn't have it be a religion in that sense, because that's obvious. So what does it really mean to have these kind of ideals and attach it onto Godzilla as opposed to just having them on your own? That's what I'm trying to explain. Okay, so what Godzilla is a series of 33 films and a bunch of other licensed tie-in media stuff. I know. But principally, it is a series of 33 films, and they were made over the course of 70 years by different people. And filmmaking, of course, is not a one-author kind of a job. There are, of course, auteurs, but even films made by auteurs have weight thrown in from other people. Blackie, Kurosawa, not Porky, the other guy, Blackie, Kurosawa, famously auteur kind of guy. His Kurosawa movies are Kurosawa movies by Kurosawa, whatever. But like, he couldn't do those movies without actors. He couldn't do those movies without camera. He could have a lot of say in directing those actors. He could have a lot of say with the cinematographer. He could have a lot of say with the script. But ultimately, he didn't do every single one of those things himself. And so even with the amount of influence he has over the what's the word I'm looking for? Participation? No. It starts with a C. The thing that everyone puts into it. You know what I mean? Cooperation. I don't know. The thing that everyone puts into the movie, whatever his influence is, however outsized it may be, contributions. That's what it is. Whatever his influences are with everyone's contributions to the film, everyone is still, who is a contributor, is still putting a little bit of themselves into it, even if it's not much. And so it's really kind of impossible to have all of the little bits of everyone else involved not match up, not equal like a single person's vision, right? It's a single person can be a very strong driving force behind a film, but they will never be the whole film. And Godzilla movies are just not like that. Honda's movies were not Honda's movies, right? They had just as much to do with the writers and the actors, and especially the special effects people, Eiji Tsuburaya and Sanamasa Harikawa, and Nakano too. Honda did a movie with Teruyushi Nakano, and that movie is the way it is. Not because it's a Honda movie alone, but because it's a Honda movie written by Yukiko Takayama with effects by Nakano. You know what I mean? Movies are made by lots of people, and although there were times where there was consistent staff from multiple entries in a row, over 70 years you're not going to get the same people. And so there's a lot of like groups of movies, there's lots of one-offs, it's a lot of different people, and for each movie it's a lot of different people coming together for different things, for different reasons at different times. There's the commercial aspect of the films was different at various points in history. And so the whole of Godzilla is very piecemeal. It's very hodgepodge. They're all kind of different things. So they're not really speaking with the same voice. They're not, it's not a unified thing. Right? But here's the thing. Again, every single time a new Godzilla movie comes out, it is consistently Godzilla. Still, it doesn't really seem to matter who the writer is or who the director is or who the actors are. It always seems to come out not necessarily the same. It's definitely not the same every time, but it's consistent with Godzilla. And sometimes things are added to that. Things are changed. Things are evolved. But the core of Godzilla, this part here, this guy never really changes in any of that. And if that doesn't make sense to you, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, if you think that sounds crazy, then I guess maybe you're one of those people who doesn't understand Godzilla movies very well. And I gotta be honest, that's kind of shocking to me. And so here's the thing that I built up to before that I thought I was going to start with, and I mentioned it in the -1 video. So Godzilla vs. Megalon, right? That movie is a children's film. It is for children. The purpose of that movie is not to spark a revolution. It's not to get people to think about, war or the bomb or to cause societal change. That movie exists to give your kid something to do for 90 minutes while you're getting dinner ready, right? That is a movie that entertains kids, and that's all it ever wanted to do. And it's very silly. It's very goofy. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Its internal logic is baffling, to say the least. It's so fun. It's so fun and funny and goofy. But, it's not GMK. It's not Biollante. It's not Planet Eater. It's not Shin Godzilla. It's not heavy at all. It doesn't really want to convince you of anything. It doesn't really have anything to say. And if it does say anything, it doesn't. In a non-Godzilla movie, you would go, well, it doesn't really mean it. Okay. But in that movie, in Godzilla vs. Megalon, right, what's the premise of the movie? Right? Think about it. What is the plot of that movie? The plot of that movie, from the opening, the cold open of the movie is nuclear tests in the Aleutian Islands have destroyed everything. Monster Island is broken. There's environmental disasters, and on top of that, it's hurting people. It's hurting people. It's destroying civilization. And those are fantasy civilizations under the earth, the Ceetopians. Those are fantasy nature. That's Monster Island, right? It's fantasy. It's a game. It's not real. It's children's entertainment. But what does that movie say in the opening few seconds? In the cold open, it says nuclear testing is destroying the world. It's killing people. It's taking lives, and it's breaking nature. And, none of that really has anything to do with the plot of the movie per se. Like, that's not really what the movie's about. The movie isn't like going to get up on a soapbox and say, nukes are bad. But it's still a Godzilla movie, and because of that, it still says these things in it. Because if it was an Ultraman episode, that wouldn't be in there.
but because it's a Godzilla movie, it's in there. And that to me is kind of the core difference between Godzilla and anything else. Because Godzilla, the character, the monster, the toys, the brand, you can use this to sell whatever you want. It's a big tent monster. Everybody likes Godzilla. You can use it for whatever you want. You can make an entertaining children's film. But the core of what Godzilla is that humans do things that destroy and hurt and kill, and monsters are a representation of that. And so even when you have this escapism fantasy film, it can't let go. It just grips onto it. And it's that to me is everything that Godzilla is about. So I think that it isn't, and it's not a coincidence for sure. We know that because you don't get hired to work on a Godzilla movie and then you go, oh well, I'm just not gonna make a Godzilla movie unless of course you work for Hollywood. Right? But for like if Toho hires you, if you're making a real Godzilla movie, you don't get that job and go, well, I'm just going to throw away 70 years of history and not make a real Godzilla movie. No, you make the Godzilla movie like you were hired to do. And so we can it's not really like divinely ordained that things have come together in the way that they have. And certainly there have been prophets of the Godzilla religion who have slacked off, we could say, maybe. Jun Fukuda, maybe we could call one of the slacking prophets or whatever. But as a whole, when it comes together, it is extremely consistent. And that has value to me. And the way that I choose to express that meaning, my system of meaning, attaches value to those coincidences. And every single time there's a new Godzilla movie, it matches that. My hypothesis has not yet been disproven. And so that's what I believe. I believe that Godzilla is a kind of representation of the Anthropocene, of postmodern guilt, of what's happened since the bomb. He's this kind of avenging God in a way. And should I talk about the pronouns? I say he is a general because I do think most Godzillas, well, not because I think most Godzilla, it's kind of incidental. I do think most Godzillas as depicted in the films are male. In fact, the only one that I think is definitely female is the Millennium Godzilla, and GMMG is probably intersex. But at that point, I don't really have a lot of confidence in that idea. I am very confident in thinking the Millennium Godzilla is female. And then the rest are probably male. Shin Godzilla I know for sure is male because that's just Goramaki. But so yeah, it's kind of the specter, and what that is in reality is of course just the collective dread that we feel since the bomb. It's people being aware of pollution and war and all of these horrible things that have happened, and it's scary stuff. And we have sci-fi and all this other stuff to say, oh well, here's the way things are going and here's the way it will go, and it doesn't look great, and let's all be sad about that and all this other stuff. And, so Godzilla in that sense is maybe just an extension of that. Who knows? To me, it's a little different. To me, it's a little... because sci-fi is a thing that's existed for a long time. But Godzilla is specifically postmodern. Godzilla is specifically after the bomb and a product of the bomb. And so he's not real in the sense that he's going to incarnate and come and get us. That's not going to happen. But it doesn't need to happen, because Godzilla manifests himself through our actions, through our anxiety, and when people do horrible things, the destruction that results from the bomb, from war, from fascism, from pollution, all of those horrible things that happen, that is the act of Godzilla. So let me tell you this story. It wasn't April 1st. It was either April 2nd or March 31st or March 30th or whatever it is. I can never remember how many days are in each month. But so I did kind of an April Fool's thing, and my April Fool's thing was to do monster movies without any monsters in them. And there were only two examples that I could think of. One was, of course, the most famous example that everybody already knows, Event Horizon, which is a monster movie without any monsters. And it's very famous for being that because it is structured like a monster movie, but without the monster ever actually appearing. The most you get is Sam Neill with an axe, but of course he's not a monster. He's just a guy who was driven crazy by all the stuff going on. And so I always call that movie like the real Doom movie, right? Because the Doom movies that they actually made are really terrible. I've never actually seen the newer one, Annihilation, but I did see the one with The Rock. I've seen it several times, and I think that one's fun. It's not good, but it's fun. I like watching it. It's one of those, like, it's good because it's a bad movie kind of a thing. And so yeah, Event Horizon, but the other one was Miracle Mile, and Miracle Mile is one of the very few. Obviously, Event Horizon I like because they managed to make a monster movie without putting the actual monster in it. I think the fact that they pulled that off is extremely clever, and so that is why that movie, I'm fond of it. But Miracle Mile was never made to be like that. Miracle Mile is just a regular nuclear 80s Cold War fear kind of movie, right? But it had an effect on me, and it stayed in my mind ever since. And so I played it, and I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it since I was in my 20s, maybe. And when I watched it for the stream as part of that bit to pretend it was a Godzilla movie that Godzilla just wasn't in, it was shocking. It was one of those experiences where I needed my system of meaning to come into play to explain to me why I felt so strongly. And it was pretty obvious, because if you see the movie, there is a certain point in it, like there's a build-up, and then there's a certain point stuff starts exploding. There's even a sequence where there's like a car pileup, and it's not the same as that sequence from Submersion of Japan, you know, where there's all the cars on the highway, and then they all blow up in sequence, and then they reuse that as stock footage for like every movie for the next 30 years or whatever the fuck, you know, that the shot that's in like every fucking Toho special effects film ever after. It is almost like that scene is actually happening, and there's like explosions in buildings and stuff, and it gets to a point where just the sheer panic of the threat of the bomb creates the destruction that Godzilla would pose. And I wasn't the only one who noticed it, because I framed it that way. My audience also saw it. They saw Godzilla walk through the city invisibly, and he went through and he destroyed everything. And it was incredible. It was an incredible experience. And that is the kind of shit that I talk about when I talk about this Priestess thing, because in that system of meaning, that made sense to me. I saw the same thing that I've maintained as the Priestess, that it isn't this thing here. It isn't the giant mutant dinosaur that's going to do it here in our world. It's going to be us. It's our things that we're doing. They carry their own destruction with them. The reason that we represent that type of destruction with the big mutant dinosaur that pushes over silver boxes, because the silver boxes laugh at him. And if you don't get that reference, read a book. Read a very specific book. That we saw that happening in art, and so it's just a confirmation of that. So that's what I think Godzilla is, and it really carries that angst with it, and so it's kind of, we don't really have we don't develop new gods anymore in the way that they used to be made. Like a god of this, a god of that, like the old polytheistic method where we would have an idea and we would attach a personification to that idea. But we do still make our own mythology. We do still make our own monsters and our own stories. And Godzilla is our god of destruction and anxiety and fear and pollution and the bomb, especially the bomb, and all of those other things that I've already mentioned. And it's art. You know what I mean? Like, not to have this turn into another episode of Maly independently just rediscovers all human knowledge, but that's what art is. It's a way that we turn those things into something tangible so that we can tell it in a kind of succinct way. So Godzilla is a singular point. I didn't even notice I did that. Come here. Godzilla is a singular point that we all focus all of these things onto, and he carries all of it on his back, all of it, all of the things. It's not just the bomb, it's everything. It's everything that is a result that led up to the bomb, everything, the variations of the bomb, all that other crap. It's all here. It's all in this dude. It's in here. And so he's kind of this phantom that embodies all of it. So when I say Godzilla, what I'm really talking about is everything bad, and the fear of that, and the way that all of this stuff is endangering us, the imminent death that we for some reason seem to want so badly, this desire to hasten our own extinction. And there are things that we can learn about that from these movies, and that doesn't mean that you need to use movies as a way to learn. Like, you can't just go out into the real world and observe on your own and do all that stuff. Obviously that's not there. But when you look at this book, right? This book here, this dinosaur book, you're not independently gathering information on all of these animals. You're reading a book that's compiled all of the stuff that people have already found out. And it doesn't make this information, I mean, the fact that this book is so old, it would, science moves pretty fast. That cheapens it a little bit. But it doesn't make it less compelling because of that. We all stand, our civilization is kind of built on the shoulders of giants. So we wouldn't, if we weren't writing this shit down, we wouldn't have anything to build off of, right? So, I didn't independently discover any of this. I have, as I've gotten older, I've made more and more episodes of Maly independently rediscovers all human knowledge. But, that's fine. But, like, all of these other people have already done that already, and they've left it here for us to understand. And so the scientific process is the process of discovering all of this stuff. But you can put it all in here in a book, and you can read about it, and you can catch up. And then you can start from here, from the shoulders of the giants that you're standing on, build up and develop your own ideas and keep going from there. It's how we keep exponentially increasing our knowledge base and all this other stuff. Godzilla is like fucking 50 meters tall, man. You want to talk about standing on the shoulders of giants? We figured this shit out. We figured out that the bomb is bad. Everyone who has lived since that happened, they've all lived with these same kinds of fears, and some of it's even older than the bomb, right? But this is kind of the accumulated knowledge of our fears and anxiety. And this is the temple that I built my system of meaning on, because I'm scared. I'm scared. For 89 seconds to midnight, the fascists are back in power, and I'm trans, and I'm scared. And I have every right to be scared. I have every right to be angry, because there's people dying all over the world. For no reason. For literally no reason, right? Why? What's the war in Ukraine about? Because a rich guy wants more land? What's the war in Gaza about? Oh, because you hate people that are a different color? Oh, okay. Well, I guess they're the same color, different religion. Okay, whatever. Is that worth killing them over, man? Is that worth death? Is that worth death? Are you going to kill them? You going to send Godzilla after him because of that? I have every right to be scared. You know what I mean? I have every right to be angry. And so there's not a whole lot I can do. I can't stop Russia. I can't stop Israel. I can't stop the US. I can't stop any of these monsters from hurting people or killing people. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have the transportation. I live out here in the middle of the woods. You know what I mean? My temple of Godzilla, my priestess temple, is pretty isolated, which is good for me in a way because it keeps me safe. It keeps me away from the most dangerous places, which I should be happy about, but I'm not. Because here in the temple, we're built on this guy. And its human empathy is such that this weighs on me a lot. So it's difficult because when I want to express this stuff, I can go on social media all I want, and I can say somebody said the word, somebody said Ghidorah's named, and now we're all fucked. And maybe 2 people out of the 1,000 people that follow me will understand what I even meant by that, and that's frustrating. Maybe I go and I say, and I point to a Godzilla movie and I go, well, see, it's here. This is the thing that I'm talking about. It's right there, and nobody pays attention to me because I'm sniffing the cave fumes, right? They don't care. The Sibyls are ignored these days, I guess. But I think I'm still gonna do it because that's just, I guess that's just kind of the path I've chosen for myself, I guess. So now you get it. I think I've explained it all. That is essentially my my manifesto. And so there you go. That's my temple, and you're welcome to come in anytime. I'll tell you all about Godzilla, and I can interpret the runes for you. And I also got to tell you're welcome to come in anytime. But I'm not the only one who's capable of understanding this. You can understand it. And I want you to understand it. I want you to get it. I want you to figure this out on your own. I want you to understand that these things are bad. And I want you to be able to watch a Godzilla movie and understand that when a character in a Godzilla movie faces the fucking camera and says, man is a worse monster than Godzilla, I want you to be able to know what that means without having to come here and listen to me rant about it for 90 minutes. And so maybe that's just a beautiful dream that will never come true. But whatever. It's my dream. So what else do I got to say? I'm pretty much done here. I guess we're just going to, I don't know, a sign off or whatever. I did have this idea as a series because basically what I would do now is next time you come back, or next time I come back, I think the lore of the what am I thinking of? The segment? No, like the construction of the conceit of the show or whatever is that you're visiting my temple, the temple of the priestess of Godzilla, and then I'm just like fucking sniffing the K fumes and telling you the thing that I've been mad about. Also, partially, this is to kind of curtail me just like rambling on Biscay, because it exists for like there's barely any reason for me to ever interact with it in any other way. It's social media is pretty fucking useless, I gotta say. But so maybe it'll replace that. I don't know. Maybe it'll replace the customary 30 minutes of dicking around, and maybe that'll mean that I'll make more of these in the future. Whatever. That's kind of the hope. I think I covered that already. But I'm just trying to. That's really it. I'm just trying to like make sure I crossed all my T's on this. And it is almost 3, so I am gonna have to stop pretty soon. But yeah, that's the show. So next time, right. That's what I was thinking of. Next time. So now that I've set all that up, what that's gonna mean is that next time on the show, you will have all of the ammo that you need to understand the core conceit of the show, of the framing narrative. That's what I was thinking of the framing narrative of this being my temple that you come to with me, the Sybil. And then that's the difference between me and other shows that just get mad about shit, I guess. That's it's a stylistic flavor, I guess. And also, like, my face isn't. All of this stuff is on camera, but not like, and also, my fucking bony ass knees in that hot. And you want to stare at, look at these fucking bony ass knees. Hell yeah, dude. So you've got that to admire too. You can fucking throw away all those like magazines with all those models on speed. Why would you need those when you have like these fucking things, right? Look at that. It's like a mountain. Like somebody built a mountain right in the middle of my leg. Beauty at its finest. So there you go. So yeah, that's what I meant to say. Next time you'll have the framework needed to understand blah 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 blah. And so there you go. Will I even upload this? That's the big question. Will I even make this a thing? I don't know. Maybe not. We'll see. I think probably what's going to happen is I will wait until I can come up with a good episode 2 to do and have the time for it. I've also like overworked myself is another problem that I have. So I just may not. But this was pretty low energy. I drank a beer and I wrote a song real quick for the intro, and then I just kind of like rambled. I did a little bit of an outline. I can show you how in depth the outline is. It's not very. That's kind of. I mean, that's not going to show up because this webcam is real shitty. But this doesn't. I mean, that didn't really cover hardly half the shit I've been going on about. But that's because I have a degree of confidence in my ability to kind of ramble on for hours, which is developed from, again, the customary 30 minutes of dicking around, which I've ballooned to an hour or more. So there you go. I covered everything. That was the main point I wanted to make. Now you have the setup for next time. You know what the show is. Hopefully you understand what the show is. I think I kind of understand what it is. If I mostly know what the show is, I guess you'll know. And then I think the last part about this that is really the uncertainty is just me like not really knowing if this is like worth uploading, because I just don't know if anyone wants to listen to me talk about why everything sucks for 90 minutes, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if people want a feature-length version of The World Sucks and Now It's Your Problem. But people like Godzilla movies, so I don't know. But then again, I guess it's fair to say that my only experience with doing like this priestess thing publicly so far, or in the stream, which is not very popular. It is still, it remains to this day pretty much just a thing for me and my friends to do, which is fine so long as everyone has a good time, which they do. So that's not really reaching a big audience, so I can't really judge people's impressions based on that. And then the other thing is social media, which of course is social media. So like, of course nobody gives it. I do have like I have like 1.2, I think it's hovering around 1.3 thousand followers or whatever, and I just kind of like stagnated. But you know, I post it there all the time and nobody really interacts with it. So either I'm terrible or people just don't give a shit. And so the kind of X factor with me uploading this is that YouTube is a lot easier to get people's attention and stuff. Of course, this isn't the kind of video that I really wanted to like make. I really wanted to like talk about stuff that didn't make me angry. But the more angry I get, the more content I make out of it, and the more it's just like, yeah, all right. So there you go. That's my show. Off. I've got to end because I'm gonna play video games, which I didn't really necessarily want to do today. I wanted to do the work that has been like I've been behind on and that kind of stuff. But I do kind of want to play the game. And after rambling for an hour about stuff that makes me sad, I would kind of like to go live and see my pals who do not make me sad. Doesn't that sound nice? Doesn't that sound like a nice thing to do? So, I did not prepare a sign off ahead of time. I don't know if I really want to use the same one. You know what? You know what we'll do? Let's just use the same chord progression, and then let's just try to like figure out an ending on the spot. You ready? Yeah, that's how it went. And that's the end of the show for today. I'll be back next week, so hooray. And now it's over and you can go home and kneel to the alabaster throne. And the dragon wakes in the darkness of the night, and the demons hide in the darkness of the night, and the dragon hunts the demons and they get into a fight, and that's what happened in the darkness of the night. Okay, that's enough. I'm done. Alright. Goodbye. Hey, there you go. You know, we're done. I think we're done. Okay, goodbye forever until next time.